Sorry, sir. I think you'll maybe want to talk to one of the other girls. I'll see if I can find one for you.
No.
No, no, no! Please, please. Please don't go.
Welcome back to the harbor. I'm your host, the Kino Cowboy. I'm here with Scott and Casher, your boys, your patrician pals. Today we are back in the new year with a new episode on Paris, Texas.
It's pronounced Paris, Texas.
A art house darling from 1984, starring Harry Dean Stanton, directed by what's his name, Wim Wenders. Yeah,
Wim.
Bro.
What a dumb fucking name.
Yo, shout out Harry Dean Stanton, Kentucky. I lived in Lexington for 3 years, where every year since 2011 they've had Harry Dean Stanton Fest.
that's
So,
crazy as
They
fuck.
got murals. They got murals of him in town. What's
Yeah.
weird is Michael Shannon's a bigger actor and he's from there. I guess he's just too like weird and standoffish to people. I don't know.
Damn, I thought he died just like 2 years ago. He died in 2017. Damn.
Yeah, that's when I was living in Lexington. People mourned.
That's
And then
crazy as fuck.
Ali died like a little after, and people were really ooh. But Harry Dean Stanton,
I was introduced to Harry Dean Stanton in Alien, like most people were.
yep.
But then he started popping up. Well, first of all, he's also in Escape to New York, but then he's in this movie called Repo Man. Have y'all seen that?
Yes.
No,
It's a weird movie.
Yeah.
came out same year as this, 84.
Yeah. And then while I really started to pay attention to him was when I was getting into David Lynch's filmography, because him and Lynch are bros and he pops up in a lot of his movies. He also has that cameo in Avengers where he's like that janitor or whatever.
Shit.
He's in a lot of movies. He's a very wide-ranging character actor. He's in
This is like one of the only movies that he was like the star in, though. He's
Yeah.
So
I think it's this
interesting
one
too.
and his last film were like the only two movies he was ever in a starring role, is what I was reading.
because
he's a baller.
it's one of those where, I mean, heck, he was in Rango, Inland Empire, Fear and Loathing, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, Red
Yeah.
Dawn. I didn't know he's Red Last Temptation of Christ. He's in a ton of stuff. But I think that's interesting. Let's start there, because this is not a plot-driven movie. It isn't, but it is an emotion-focused and character-driven as heck movie. And his performance is definitely at the heart of it. And I think the reason they almost needed a character actor to be the lead in this, because the character of Travis that he plays is so withdrawn socially and traumatized. It's like you almost need something more subtle and weaker than leading man energy. You can't just put Leonardo DiCaprio in this role. Something.
I understand what you're saying.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of this movie, it felt like the American Southwest itself was almost a character.
Oh,
Yeah,
easy.
for
Dude,
sure.
It was like,
And I
the
find it
whole
really
vibe.
interesting that this is a foreign produced film in that sense.
Dude, yeah, he captured it, man. Because I'm got mildly obsessed with the American Southwest this past year after traveling through it pretty extensively.
Yeah, you went to where'd you go? Yeah, Santa Fe.
Amarillo. Yeah, Santa Fe. We went through Amarillo. We went through the Cadillac Ranch. We went through these dead towns, which Paris is very much a dead southern western town. And
Yeah, this movie hits different after I've been through the Southwest too.
Yeah.
On the
Adrian and I
Christmas-
did that road trip. We
Yeah.
drove
Me
from
and
Little Rock. I drove from Kentucky, from Little Rock to Los Angeles. So we went through all of Texas,
Mhm.
all the Southwest. And
It's
it was
crazy.
I've done that
We
twice.
saw
I did
this.
that for the Christmas in Vegas tour as well.
Shout
It was
out.
a little bit different, obviously, but I'm saying like there was more stops.
His
So
gambling addiction.
on that tour, I was able to stop, especially in Arizona, and kind of just look around because we had time to kill in certain times.
Sure.
And like Casher and I discussed this several times, but we have both been on like Route 66 and like just small towns over there. There's like this atmosphere to it. It's very interesting.
It's hard to
And
capture that, and this
that's
captured
what,
it
yeah,
really
that's why
well.
this movie stuck around with me for so long. I haven't seen this movie in years, and I was like, why this keeps sticking around with me? I just need to rewatch it and do it. Fuck it, we'll do a podcast. They'll get me to rewatch it.
You know,
And it's
sometimes the distinguishing thing about your country or your region, it almost requires a foreign eye to catch it and to point out why it's so unique and different, if that makes
Well,
any sense.
dude, one of the biggest like American or not American, but artists who captures like landscapes in the Southwest, I'm pretty sure is from like a Yugoslavian nation. Like he's fucking full on Euro trash.
no,
No, but like if you look up like old school or even like newer school of like cowboy paintings and things like that and stuff that like really encapsulates that area, you'll find artists that are mostly from like European centered nations and stuff.
interesting.
It is super weird. One of
Well,
the
and
things,
there's also that Sergio Leone guy.
yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Who's he
One of the
again? No,
big
I'm just kidding.
things that I was thinking of this though, there's not a whole lot of movies that do encapsulate this area super well. The only thing that even came into mind was a recent film, and it captures the modern like Southwest like
Hello,
this.
High Water?
No, it's called Red Rocket, which we talked about this a little bit on the podcast last time. The concept of it is of a washed up porn star comes and starts fucking around with a very young woman. But the area that they're in is in Texas, in a small town that's kind of a dead town like Paris, Texas is. And it looks and it's captured like every single person, even in this, like everything feels just like cohesive and all a part of like a weird atmosphere. And it really paints the picture of that area as like a really weird, it's a weird landscape.
No, for real. It's this atmosphere that brought me back. Like it like the way it captured it, the lighting, the mood, it obviously made an impact on me. And in a way, because since it's not modern, it's in 1984, it feels like a different world almost. And it's just like also it's mid 80s, like peak Americana as fuck.
Peak Reagan.
And like we all have roots in this country. We have our parents grew up during this time, and I don't know, it feels like such a different time, but also not. I don't know.
Well, it's like I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Yeah.
And so it's not the exact same, but any of these small Texas plain towns or even like Gulf towns all have a similar vibe. There's that point where Travis is walking at night. I can't remember where he's trying to get to, but he passes by that pool hall that's just blasting Chicano music. And like just after that, it's immediately silent. And it's like, man, weird shit like that happens is predominant in Texas.
Yeah.
It's a weird, there's that blend of cultures. There's American Indian and Hispanic, and of course, the real Americans, and the mix of that. One of the things you mentioned, ghost towns, there is a timelessness to the West. It's almost like an Ozymandias thing, gaze upon you works in despair. Because even though this is set in the 80s, it still feels pretty modern. And I think part of that's is those small towns, they don't develop a ton. They might get a Dollar General or something.
No, and one of the things that I recognize is that the small towns in Texas, compared to like small ghost towns in, let's say, like Appalachia country, like it's not as sinister. It feels like
no, Appalachia's a terrible place.
Well, like you go to like these old mining towns that have just been deserted. It's even in Arkansas, there's like Dog Patch and all these fucking like those have like such a weird, sinister, eerie feeling to it. But this feels just like it's just a town that was just people grew out of it. It's fucking weird. I don't know.
I mean, that's the whole thing. You have all these boom towns in the West. It's part of our country's mythology.
I mean, we did There Will Be Blood, and that was definitely one of those types of towns.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all of Cormac McCarthy, I mean, he captures this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another good one.
Better than any other author, probably. Blood Meridian is like the mic drop on the entire Western genre. But I don't know how they're going to adapt that. By the way, they've been talking. They've been talking about it. I don't know if you've read that, but
I haven't. No, I've heard.
It's Cormac McCarthy at his most Cormac McCarthy. I'll just say that. And it's
Dude,
like I don't know how you're going to do this.
I will say one of the things that also really brought me into this movie was the immediate introduction of the music.
Yeah.
Fucking dude, that is one of the most haunting little riffs, just like ever. Even like not knowing the context of what's happened to Travis, there's just something that kind of makes your stomach just like that. Like it's just really dreary and it's weird. Ry Cooder, I was reading into him, the music in this film, because that's the first thing I really noticed was the music. And Ry Cooder was using, is this Coder? I don't know. It's Cooder.
I like Cooter just because I like it.
well, the thing is, he uses this song "Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground," which is a really, really famous blues song by Blind Willie Johnson. Sounds like a dick. Which
Cooter made a song by Willie Johnson.
Well, what Cooder said was he called it the most transcendent piece in all American music.
Wow,
that's a bold claim.
Like that, but it's like fuck it. I'm like that's what I'm remembering most from the film is the fucking...
because it follows the whole movie. It sets it at the beginning and it ends it at the end, and just like a way, it's like this is just a small little tale in American history, not real, but you know what I'm saying. It's just like
no. I understand. This is just that it's about. I mean, it's about a loss of connection, which you feel that if you're ever driving through the desert at night and you just feel alone, even if you're with other people. But you ever have that thought, you're like driving through the desert and you're like, dude, if I wrecked right now or got run off the road, like I could be screwed. I could die, like if nobody came and I have no water, stuff like that. So it's an isolating place.
It almost feels like a folktale.
It feels like a folktale. Well, let's start. You talked about the beginning. This sets it up immediately with Harry Dean Stanton walking through, and you immediately wonder who this guy is, why he's wandering through the desert. And one of the things that stuck out to me is I love his costuming because he just has this old raggedy suit. It looked like he got from a thrift shop 50 years ago, and then a red baseball cap.
Yeah,
that's all he has, walking around scraggly with an empty milk jug. What's up,
dude? I seeing him pop in and then fall out and then it's amnesia. I went into this fully blind.
Yeah, me too.
This is a movie I've been meaning to watch for a long time. I thought this was going to go into like some weird supernatural situation where like, because especially in the Mojave Desert, like I have literal books on my shelf right now that tell about expert fucking hikers who go through some shit like that,
like
and
Wendigos
are never
and stuff.
fucking seen again. But yeah, I really thought it was gonna be something about aliens. So I'm not gonna lie. I really thought that's what they were aiming for, especially when he wasn't talking, and it's just like all these weird circumstances. So find me surprised what it's really about. I don't know, dude. I got like weird David
such
Lynch
a grounded movie
too.
No,
like,
that's the thing. It is incredibly grounded because there's no. So in the Western genre, and I'll call this a Western for sure, there's usually a crime. Even in neo-Westerns, there's a criminal element. And I guess, now we're getting into spoilers, there is a bit of a, not even prostitution, a sex work element, but that's not really criminal. It's kind of a gray market, but it's there's none of that. There's no gunfire. There's no violence at all.
No, just the story he tells about what he did to his woman.
Right. And the story almost all comes at the end. Almost all of it.
Yeah.
You wonder what's happening to this guy. And it's really the most not simple, but the most human events and nothing out of the ordinary that causes his life to spiral. But that's what it is for most people.
It's a journey movie.
It is. It's a road movie.
Yeah.
What I like about this movie is that, first of all, the thought of having amnesia or being in a fugue state's always terrified me, of not knowing what's going on, Obviously, he's been lost literally and metaphorically for years, and so to be in that far gone, I can see it happening. But in cartoons and other forms of media, amnesia is usually like, oh, I forgot who I am, and then they get knocked on the head and they're like, oh, I remember everything. I like that this movie is like, it doesn't tell you how much he knows, how much he doesn't know, and you can tell he is starting to get more and more things come back to him, but it's never truly apparent just how much he is coherent and how much he's not.
Well, and you wonder, because Harry Dean Stanton gives a great performance, and that all the performance in this have a great amount of subtlety in them. It's gives you so much to read with just his face, especially the first half of the movie when he's barely talking, and he doesn't talk a lot anyway. But it lets you ponder, what is this character thinking, and is he forgetting? So sometimes I was wondering, is he withholding information, or is he unsure of trusting other people with certain information, and or he might halfway remember but doesn't want to talk about it.
He's definitely withholding shit. There's that point where he's on the billboard with his brother, and his brother, like, right after his brother's wife brings up, like, we should talk about what happens, and he kind of like, you can tell he kind of acknowledges that he just doesn't want to talk about it, but his brother being like, hey, tell me what the fuck happened between you and your wife.
Yeah.
I'm sick of being like speculating. I'm sick of not knowing and troubling myself over this. And then immediately he's like, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
It's time for me to leave. And then he leaves.
Yeah. But like, it did really take his brother coming to find him for him to start remembering shit and getting things back in order.
Oh, absolutely.
I do like that when he's on the billboard with him. One of my favorite lines of the movie, he says, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of falling. It's just a good line. But yeah.
I like that he thinks that all the billboards are made by his brother at first.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like, certain things make me think that he's almost like a child again in certain aspects, because just the way he acts while he's trying to kind of come back to himself, and when he like sits on the side and like just looks at planes and shit with the binoculars, and I don't know, he's not completely rational either, because no rational adult would have just said, yeah, come on, kid, let's go to fucking Texas. He would have been like, no, you guys stay here, sorry.
There's definitely a childlike aspect, or almost a senile, even though he's not that old in this movie. I think he's just rough. But he could be in his 60s at the.
Everyone chain smoked back then. That's why.
That's the thing. It sounds like it looks like he's been walking in the desert and chain smoking. So without sunscreen, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's people looked so much older back then. Jeez. But so there is that, and you can imagine before whatever trauma happened, his mind wasn't all that great anyway. You get that. You kind of get the sense he's always been the weird black sheep brother who the first one maybe didn't come out quite right according to their parents.
Like me.
Test subject sort of thing. And sort of the prodigal son return sort of thing. But also I do wonder, just straight up, how much heat stroke affects your brain like that, the short and long term. Because he's clearly out of it and barely cognizant, has to like eat ice, and I love it. He just eats ice, and as soon as his body temperature drops and he gets a little bit of water, he just falls over. I don't know. It's so interesting. That guy's just looking at him, but it's immediately, I don't know. It drew me in. It's a simple question, but just drawing me in with the question. All right, who's this guy? What's happening? That sustains you through the whole movie, even though that mystery is really just a vehicle for the rest of the emotional core of this movie,
for sure,
to get unpeeled as it goes along.
Again, it took a turn for me. I thought it was going to be super.
Did you think this guy was going to be like possessed by an alien?
I don't know, man. Or like he was abducted.
Like the chest burster scene was going to happen?
Or like he was abducted and dropped in the middle of the Mojave and back and doesn't I don't fucking know, man.
Okay.
It had a vibe to it that like a lot of those desert and like Mojave and like areas like that do have that vibe though. Like
I get it.
There's not like
I guess I should have warned you. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I got 3/4 of the movie, and I was like, "Where when am I going to figure this out?"
I think
you thought Keke Palmer and Keith David were going to run up on horses.
I think when I first watched this some movies I saw like GIF sets on Tumblr of, imagery and back in like 2015, 16. And so I would always be like, ooh, I'm gonna check this out. I think this was one of those because it was like a bunch of atmospheric shots at night in like, yeah. Uh, um that's funny that you said that, but also when my stupid brain focuses on the wrong thing sometimes. Like when he's eating that ice, my mind's thinking about like this is in the middle of nowhere. What did it take for them to install an ice machine in this house and running water from what source and how did it get here? And I don't know. I'm like, damn, how does everything in fucking society work? I can't
You're
even
just
wrap
thinking
my
about
head around it.
infrastructure. I did think about that a little, but also I don't think it's that hard. You just run some electrical wiring and the rest kind of takes its
Man,
I
it
know.
would break your brain if we went to my like the Casher childhood town. It's called Coal Hill, Arkansas. It's got a population of about 300 now. It was less than that whenever my dad was growing up there, and they have one in the middle of fucking nowhere, one little superstore. Like not a superstore, but like a fucking bodega or like small
Yeah.
family shop. And they've got an ice machine, and it's like, how the fuck did you guys even get electricity? We had to call the government to get this out here. So,
Do they
Yeah.
just have a generator? Did the government not pull
No,
anything
it's
to
just
them?
weird, man. I don't know.
I don't know.
And
No,
like,
it is, but that adds to it. I mean, what you're saying though does tie back into the emotional core of the movie, and you can tell that they're kind of making do with less infrastructure. So it adds to that sense of alienation because you really feel like you're on the fringes of society to the point where even watching this at the time of release, it would feel like you're, in the stuck in the 40s if you went to that bar and there's just
yeah.
nothing but like a single lazily circling fan and the hum of a half working ice machine.
Yeah, and then like the only doctor for probably miles is that fucking little house with the dude and like Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, and who's really keen on getting payment because how many people does he see? Also,
Yeah.
he's German for some reason because this is a French German production, which just
Yeah.
adds to the alienation because then you're just like, why is this German guy out here alone in West Texas doing like nothing?
His name is Bernhard Vicky as Dr. Ulmer.
Bernhard Vicky.
It looks like he's been in a lot of shit.
I didn't know this was a Janice film, and that's a meme at this point. But you see Janice, and you're like, let's go, Kino,
Yeah.
baby.
And like y'all will be seeing that logo a lot this year as we cover movies.
We're getting
I-
esoteric up in this.
Well, it's
kid.
just like they put out they distribute all of the classics. And I don't know.
Classics with a K.
Yeah, but another aspect of this film is like his brother who lives in LA flies over to get him. That would be a pain in the ass. But also like Europeans don't realize how massive the United States is.
No,
And I think that this would probably, I don't know, it's just a part of it. It's like he had to fly all the way over there, and it's like the vastness. What I'm trying to say is I saw this cast member at Disney World. She said that she's had multiple people, tourists from Europe, ask her pretty much if they would have time to drive to the Grand Canyon and then make it back for their dinner reservations. And she's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
that almost seems like they don't even look at the map.
And I'm
Well,
like,
at least we
do
don't
they
have
think
school
it's in
shooters.
Florida? Like it's
I
just
don't
such a
know,
weird
but it's
thing.
like I looked up that drive, it was like 29 hours. I was like, yeah, good luck,
Is that
buddy.
one way?
I don't know. It's like people are Eurocentric people, they just don't understand. Like even Texas takes fucking like 10 hours to drive through.
Texas, I mean, that's almost as big as Germany. Texas is almost exactly the size of Spain. It's actually slightly larger.
Crazy.
Maybe like a little less than the entire Iberian Peninsula. But that just gives you a sense of, I mean, all these countries. UK is smaller than Spain. Yeah, I mean than Texas. it really, and Texas is just a country unto itself, which
Yeah.
it ties back into its history as a part of Mexico, then as an independent republic for a small amount of time, and before being annexed or what have you. Which is still today, you kind of feel like, I don't know, we're a sister state, but it still kind of feels like a different country when you're there. In a way.
Easily.
Especially West Texas.
Fuck
And
that.
I was thinking about how like his brother was like having to study the map to get to that obscure ass little town, and that would stress me the fuck out. Texas is so vast, dude. I don't know how people did it. I know I lived in a time before GPS, but like still, holy
You-
And I
shit.
was
would be
thinking
able
that
to get
too,
it.
like fucking using the Farmer's Almanac to get back from fucking Terralingua, Texas, all the way to LA.
I don't think you use the Farmer's Almanac.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
but you know, but also
It's
like
fucking weird, man. Like I couldn't think like
it's like when he
making
lets
sure.
when he lets his brother drive, and then he of course like pulls off somewhere random and they don't have GPS. They just have to start looking for the highway again. It's like, holy shit. That would fucking stress me.
Now, yeah, it's the main thing I got is when I delivered pizzas to like rural areas outside of town. I was like, dude, if I didn't have GPS, I wouldn't know where this street is. I've never been here.
Yeah.
I think that's where it really gets me now with certain things. It depends on where you are. I mean, if you find a highway, like, and then you just find what exits to take, you can figure it out. You
That's
get
I know,
what-
but if you're not from that fucking place, that's an extra layer. Also,
That's where I recognize Terralingua from, the place that he's fucking found. It's in an old Kenny Rogers TV movie called Rio Diablo.
I'm glad you know that.
It's something my dad showed me growing up.
Yeah, I think Casher's our most country western friend we have on this cast.
yeah.
I like,
which
that's
is
like one of my favorite-
not the highest bar because I am neither country nor western.
I love both.
My when I first started delivering pizzas at Pizza Hut when I was 19, I didn't have a smartphone because I was a poor fuck. And they didn't provide GPS, so they just like printed out like little directions with each fucking
MapQuest.
house. And you bet your ass I got fucking lost trying to deliver, especially those fucking pricks out in the sticks, like 20
Well, yeah,
minutes from the
'cause-
store. And
Because
it's like,
then you
why?
quit that job and I took your job.
Yeah, I was
I
like,
had GPS.
why are we even allowed to deliver this far? Don't you want to have like, I don't know, it's so stupid. And I was like, fuck this, I can't do this without a fucking iPhone.
No,
Mhm.
it's we live in privileged times.
Yeah, I will
But-
say, the film is just fascinating to watch as you follow him through this story, because it's just there's a mystery element to it and all that, but also watching his brother try to help him and get stuff situated. It's all very interesting to me, even though one might not find too much happening. There is a lot there.
There's a lot of emotional subtext and everything.
Yeah.
And his brother, it's interesting because he's a conflicted character and interesting to watch and very sympathetic and realistic in that he's trying to help his brother, who you can tell, like, he's like, they're happy to find him, but also they're like, this guy went nuts and left. Like, we thought he was dead. He's apparently had been acting erratic for years. I don't know how much they knew of it, probably a good amount. And you can always see that sort of push and pull within the character and his performance and the dialogue of like, I mean, I think we've all had those friends who always need help or always dealing with something, and like you love them and you want to help, but also you're like, ugh. And imagine this guy's your brother moving in with you. You're kind of getting used to being called dad by his son, and then he pops up.
That's the fucked up part, man, is like the son has been assimilated into a normal like family life.
Yeah, healthier.
He's got a loving like uncle and aunt who are, for all intents and purposes, his mom and dad. She's calling him that, and it's like he just kind of lifts him up. He takes his son to go find his mom, and it's like his son's like, yeah, I can have my real family back. Almost, he was like didn't want to do anything with him at first, didn't want to have anything to do with his dad, and then started to really come to terms with like who his father is, and then going on some fucking insane adventure like that.
I enjoy that they still kind of kept the kid able to call both men his dad.
Oh, it's
Yeah, I
definitely
like
the
that
mature.
aspect too.
Because
Complex.
the concept of a father is a very complex one.
Yeah.
Without going into this chat and the people represented. But I say that seriously though.
Yeah.
It's we all have our different experiences and concepts with fathers. And I think we've all probably had authority figures, father figures in our lives. Apart from that, and in this kid's situation, because he can remember his biological father, he has glimpses, and part of it's reconstructed from like photographs, and he'll watch a fishing trip Super 8 video. So he knows who he is. So he probably has those childhood memories that are very vague, that sort of 5 and younger, sort of hazy memory sense.
Yeah.
But that still you imprint as a child, onto whatever authority figure. It doesn't have to be your biological dad, but in this case, it
Of
was.
course.
And that
Or
early imprinting, I mean, even pre-linguistically, is incredibly important if you read anything about it. I mean, even to the point of having touch with the mother is really important for psychosocial development.
it's kind of like when Bella Swan got mad at Jacob in the Twilight movies for imprinting on her daughter when she was in the womb.
It's exactly like that.
Yeah, for being out west, there weren't enough Indian skinwalkers and werewolves for me in this movie.
I do like that they truly do love this kid and treat him as their own, and there is that complexity of you're not really sure what this guy's backstory is because it's still so vague, but like even me having seen the film before, I want him to be able to see and enjoy being around his son and stuff, but like also he fucking ran off. So how is that fair? I don't know.
It's not, and that's one of those things where I've known people who have had fathers run off on them at a young age, say, and then try to re-enter their life when they're older. And a lot of those people say no, because you can't just come back without doing the work, without risking anything, without sacrificing anything, and expect me to just welcome you back with open arms. And I wonder how much the kid, who's very precocious, he's really in the space, but they do it in a right, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of precocious children are treated as sort of these savant geniuses because who are written almost like adults in their dialogue in movies, because I guess their writers don't want to figure out how to write children. This kid feels like a realistic, precocious child.
Yeah.
Who is struggling with, because he doesn't have the context to know how selfish what his dad did was, or really even understand what his dad did. So he's young enough and innocent enough to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's also almost 8, which is the age of reason according to some people, like the Mormons. I think, I don't know. So yeah, there's even in that there's a lot of nuance, and it doesn't really feel like child acting. And I think part of that's because there's no, I don't know, Haley Joel Osment talking to aliens, big emotional moment sort of thing. So they keep it within the kid actor's wheelhouse.
Yeah, but I do like that he talks about like science and pretty much kind of existence in general.
Yeah, well, it adds another sense of you drive around. It's something you can think about, as the sun sets over the desert. You drive around and you see this vast, almost primordial wasteland where life is still developing. And it does make you ask those existential questions. First of all, you're like, if my car breaks down, I'm dead. And then there's something to it, something primal that happens there. It's almost like the earth as its own raw material is there. And there's also the idea, it's connected to the idea of America as this new world, where I guess Europeans try to get a new lease on life, and families came there to start a life, but they're still, because of the way America developed, partially because of its geography and definitely because of its economy, there's great social alienation, especially in the sort of decaying America like that. I mean, hell, Paris, Texas has had a stagnant population since it's had a negative population since 2000, And really, it went from in 1950 is 21,000. Now it's 24. You know, that's not a huge amount of growth.
I
So-
mean, you know, a lot of people don't. Yeah, they don't want to stick around in these tiny little towns. There's,
Well,
you know.
it's not even a matter of wanting to. They just can't. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that is a weird thing to think about. And I did think about watching this movie, like how even more of these tiny little towns have no place in modern America anymore, and the sadness behind that.
Remote work might help.
Yeah, it does. But I'm saying like really tiny, tiny towns.
Yeah, of course. I mean, even where my dad grew up in Malvern, Arkansas, and the Acme Brick Factory it's not active anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they still have Brickfest every year.
That's where Burt Reynolds is from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Billy Bob Thornton. My
No, not
dad,
Burt
met-
Reynolds.
I-
That's
my dad
I'm so
knew Billy Bob
fucking
Thornton.
stupid. I met Billy Bob Thornton. I'm a fucking idiot.
Oh, is that what you meant?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Apparently he was a shitheel growing up.
I don't know. My dad kind of knew him. He went to high school with him.
Yeah, my uncle did.
Said he had long hair back then. It was the 70s.
Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a weird energy just in that area, period.
Yeah.
Just in general, speaking about space and all that. Like you go into those little towns and you look directly up, you're going to see more stars than you've ever seen.
Absolutely. That's another thing.
And so, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting that they go from Paris, Texas, and they go to one of the biggest epicenters in fucking Texas.
Yeah, they go to the biggest
to
city,
Houston.
the fourth largest city in the
Oh.
states.
It's fucking Houston is a whole new ball game. If you guys have never been there, it is
No, I will in October for
Yeah, me
Death
too.
Grips.
It's a crazy fucking unique city in Texas.
Yeah, is it different than Dallas for sure?
Yeah, the culture
Yeah.
is very different.
That's why I'm excited to go.
There is
I'm excited to go.
Dallas. If you talk to people from Dallas, they'll talk about Houston as like a different culture. It is completely. I mean, that's where the Iceman Paul Wall's from, and like,
Wait,
you
who?
got Paul Wall, the fucking rapper.
Paul Wall, the rapper? Okay.
Yeah, he's from Houston. There's a reason why people aren't like, oh, he's culturally appropriating, because he's from fucking Houston.
No,
Everybody-
there's some. I know there's definitely some hood in Houston.
Everybody is like that from fucking Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, Houston's
All right.
tight. Houston's one of my outside of Austin. Houston's probably my favorite place in Texas.
Right. I really only been to Dallas and West Texas, so I've only been to the crappy parts of Texas. To be
Yeah,
Yeah,
honest.
we
Dallas
stayed at
fucking
that
sucks.
motel in El Paso on our way to LA.
Oh yeah, El Paso's a weird place. That's a liminal space. It's El Paso.
Yeah, and then like right after we left, there was like a mass shooting there or something.
Oh yeah,
Oh, at the fucking Walmart. I didn't realize that's when y'all were going there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and nobody caught us, so that's good.
Man,
Shut
no.
up. Hey.
Anyway,
Not funny.
not funny joke alert. The Harbor does not condone joke about mass death,
The
except
Harbor
for
doesn't
9/11,
condone jokes.
because America deserved 9/11 according to Hassan Piker and me, but
And Bobby Fischer.
no. So yeah, as we follow this guy on his journey, I am kind of rooting for him for a while because you don't know too much. It's just like, okay, he has these connections he's trying to get back to. Why does he want this little space of land so bad in Paris, Texas? I don't know.
Well, he
I
says
would-
it's because his parents conceived.
That's where his parents had sex.
They conceived him there.
So
It's
yeah, there is this primal fucking core to this movie. I feel like with that of like wanting to return to where you.
They
were created.
tried to go out west and make a family and make a name for themselves, and it didn't work because
Yeah.
the American dream is a lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he has that line that he talks about his dad, where his dad would introduce his mom, and his mom, he'd be like, yeah, she's from Paris, and everybody like, oh, we're from Paris, blah blah blah, Texas, that is, and like I guess that stuck with him, that dad joke.
It's a dad joke.
But also
which is
that just shows like the dad kind of, I don't know. I feel like there's something there about like wishing things were a little more elevated than they are.
Well, he clearly had problems with his family because he's obsessed with it. I feel like he didn't get something from his parents
Yeah.
because they're not really brought up. Obviously, if their family life was so great, he and his brother wouldn't be estranged. Although his brother seems to be a stand-up guy.
It seems like they weren't estranged until like the events of this. 'Cause,
Right. But
like-
even then, you feel like they were probably. He was like the weird uncle or the weird.
I don't know.
weird
They
one.
seem like
I don't
they
think
were
he
having a
was.
good
I mean,
time.
that Super 8 footage, they're all happy having a good ass time.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's what it looked like.
He might have like had some eccentricities, or like maybe he's like he's mean when he drinks, but nothing crazy. And
Well,
then
even then, like the opinion that his little brother has about him, it's changed slightly because of his mental break, and like thought he was dead, but he has no idea what the true circumstances of his exit were. Like that's why it's like you sympathize with Travis this entire journey, and then you hear what happened, and you're just like,
Oh
and
no!
you just freeze.
Yeah, Casher froze. Hopefully, he'll come back to us in just a second.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh no!
So
like you.
Uh oh, here he comes.
Am I here?
Almost.
yeah, you're both here, not here.
Where did you guys hear me till? I don't know.
I don't
You were saying right until we hear his story, we're sympathetic for him.
Well, it kind of, you become you're sympathetic throughout the entire thing, and then you hear the circumstances of his exit and what he did to Jane, and you're like, for me, I was like, fuck this guy.
Oh yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
clearly a very troubled
He's a
individual.
fucking
But
monster.
I
That
love
is-
how complex he is once you get this information because, yeah, like you spend the whole movie kind of rooting for him and stuff, and it's like, well, he's a fuck, but also Jane's kind of a fuck too. You know, she didn't have to ditch
Jane,
her
though,
child,
she was a child, you know.
but she didn't have to ditch her kid.
No, she
Man.
didn't have to do that. You're right.
it,
It's just this is the 2022 and now 2023. Early 20s are all about discussing generational trauma. That's the hot topic these days.
I sympathize more with Jane though, man. Like,
Well, yeah, you should.
For sure.
well, I'm saying like she's absolutely not innocent in this, and she realizes that too when she reunites with her son. But like hearing they went from this happy-go-lucky couple, it sounds like she was groomed. It
Yeah.
sounds like she was manipulated into a relationship with a guy who's 40 plus.
Right.
They have a child.
I don't think he was 40 plus. I think he was in like his early 30s. I just think
This
he
dude,
looks old
okay,
as
so
hell.
I'm saying he was like 60 for this movie, by the way. Like when he played the character, he was in
No,
he was the Harry D. Stanton was close
No,
to.
he was like 40.
He was close
Born
to.
in 26. This came out in 84. So no, he's like
It's almost
no, he was like
60.
60. He was 60. He was almost 60.
58
I did my
years
math
old.
wrong. He was late.
So
50s.
he was at least in his late 40s, early 50s if they're playing it like that. And he meets this young woman, falls for her, manipulates her into having a child. His drinking becomes more and more excessive. He becomes more and more possessive to the point where he chains a bell to her leg.
yeah, he's a
that's
fuck.
fucked. And when she tries to escape, he straps her to a stove. And the fire that happens concerning that, do you think she set the fire?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, she was probably just trying to escape, and either on purpose or accidentally, doesn't really matter. Set some sort of fire.
But like her going from that and then leaving her child with Anne and Walt, I think his name is. What is his name?
yeah,
Yeah.
Walt.
Yeah. Because it's like almost like a constant reminder of the abuse she faced.
Yeah,
It's one
I
of those
get
Yeah,
things-
that, and she's just trying to start new. Although, I mean, I guess like a lot of women of previous generations, if you marry early and young, as you often might, you have no real skills if you become a divorcee or a widow.
I
So-
get the idea and the thought process that led to her giving up her child. I just feel like sometimes you gotta just do shit to do shit. and keep
Right,
it-
and also she probably thought, or at least rationalized it to herself, like the child would be better off with Anne and Walt, which is
Yeah.
actually probably true.
which is probably true.
The
Oh, it's
kid
100%
seems
true.
fairly
Well, that's
well
why
He's a
it's so
successful
complex.
He has
business owner.
friends. You know,
He's
he has friends. He has academic interests. He plays tetherball.
He's a successful business owner with a sense of like he's got stability, and he's got a wife who is very
Yeah, the dad. I was
His-
talking about the child, but yes, the dad also has.
Oh, yeah,
stability.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I was thinking is like Anne the woman is like almost everything that Jane is like it's like everything Jane could have been if she was fostered more. I mean, I may just be connecting the blonde hair and stuff, but like, I don't know. She seems like a more empathetic character, even towards Jane herself. Like she hides the fact that she's been sending money and the
Yeah.
true situation. She's always pretty. I don't know. That was probably my favorite character. If we're gonna pick a character outside of Travis and Hunter, Anne was really likable for me.
No, she's sympathetic. I mean, but again, it's complex because I mean,
Yeah.
obviously she's a survivor of extreme abuse. But at the same time, instead of dealing with that by not abandoning her child, she did abandon her child. Because if you have abuse, no matter how much you intellectualize it, at some way, if somebody you love abuse you think it's my fault. I mean, it's the whole Goodwill Hunting joke of like,
It's
I've
not your
abandoned
fault.
my child.
yeah.
It's not your fault.
But no, that's a real thing about abuse. It's the emotion of it was my fault is there, even if intellectually it is not. And how do you parent if you think you have nothing of value to pass on, or that could be an excuse because you were just afraid, and it can be more than one thing. It's the psychological profiles are they're not laid out in full. They're hinted at. They're displayed. Fires cast upon the shadows here and there, and you see some shapes in the corners, but there's enough there where you can speculate on the interior lives of all these people for I mean, without really ever reaching an answer, but reaching plenty of plausible ones. And if that's not successful character development, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, he's a completely, I mean, 4 years pretty much wandering the desert and going around. That is completely broken.
And yeah, no, and like, what are you doing? Are you just like panhandling? Are you washing cars in Mexico?
I think
Are
he's
you
devolved.
drugs?
He was abducted by aliens. There's no fucking way. For
I will
4
say, like,
years,
the way he
he's
talks,
wandering
it's
the
like
desert.
he got caught up in his alcoholism and things escalated, but I think now he is reset himself in a way. And
I don't know if he
he's
has
not
though.
saying he is recognizing it's not right what he did, but I think he leaves at the end because he knows he has to go pursue his new, he's got to kind of just restart. And
I think he realized he's not going to be the person that changes.
yeah,
I feel like
well,
he thinks that.
I don't know.
Well, he goes to that bar afterwards, and like starts drinking again. And
That's
to the point
that's true.
where
That's a good point.
Where his brother or his son takes him, and they're sleeping on a fucking random couch and chair in the middle of whatever Houston.
He might
There's a
decide that
point-
he's too far gone.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like he knows that there's just no real hope for him to change. That's why he reunites his son with his mother, and then leaves without saying.
Because he thinks like one of like it's where he kind of does well, not the opposite, because he also abandoned his child. In the same way, I think that Jane may have thought, I'm not worthy of this child. I'm not worthy of parenting this child. I think he came to that conclusion because he tried to have a real relationship. But he asked in his fugue or however you say that. Fugue state. What does a dad look like? He's almost trying to reconstruct the image of his own father in himself. Yeah. And aren't we all? Aren't we all just trying to be a less shitty version of our parents?
Yeah. So far.
I think we saw his innocence go back out the door as soon as he dealt with his troubles with alcohol again.
I think maybe
I think it wiped him. I thought he was in a clean slate for there's something. Even his son recognized it.
I think he's got to figure it out for himself.
And I also think he confronted what he did to Jane, and just said, "Hey, she didn't do anything wrong. I was the villain here. Mm-hmm. So if anyone deserves to be in his life, it's you and not me."
Yeah.
And also he thinks like I know this is going to explode if we stay together. So and we can't both raise him because that'll be worse because we're
Yeah,
so
I never-
volatile together.
I don't think I didn't feel like to me he was searching for her to try and set like to get back together. I think it was always he was searching for closure the whole movie in a way.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think he was trying to
And
get
he
that into it.
confirmed it when he did see her in that place. What's a better word for nudie booth?
It's a peep show.
Yeah.
Peep show.
But just that is like the centerpiece of the movie are those two scenes where he goes into those call rooms, and the rawness of those scenes are what stuck out to me for the last 6-7 years since I watched it. And that's why when you Google the movie, that's always the shot is when he's in the shadow and his face is like over hers and stuff.
It's
Those
the best
scenes are
shot of the
fucking
movie.
insane. And rewatching it now, the first time when he like sees her for the first time in years, and she's in that pink outfit in that room, and she's trying to do her show and stuff, and the way he's looking at her and like the glow of her is like hitting his face almost. It reminded me of, in a way, like the opposite of Blade Runner 2049 when Kay is looking on his AI girlfriend, basically the giant version of her after she's like dead. That version of her is dead.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but emotionally the opposite because he's the fuck. And like, I don't know. And it's so tragic in a different way. I don't know. Two parallels in there.
No, and those are both movies about alienation.
Yeah.
And largely due to poverty. One's a dystopian poverty, one's just a poverty of understanding and just, you're working in West Texas, how much money you bring home? Not much.
But also, before you figure out what he's done to this woman in that first scene in the call room, you're kind of tricked into thinking like, oh, this is tragic to see she's like far gone and she's like in her own little new world and stuff and moved on and stuff. And then it gets to flip the next time, and I don't know. It's interesting and
it's still sad.
It is sad for sure.
But it's more understandable, and it's terrible. Like, oh, this might actually be a step up for you. As sad as it is.
I will
with
say,
OnlyFans, at least you can stay in your own home and whatever.
We'll say, fuck Paris, Texas, this movie, though, because it inspired a U2 album called Joshua Tree. That's why U2 describes it. So fuck this movie. Movie's mid. Worst movie ever.
The when he does tell his story to her, and then when it finally clicks with her and she starts crying, there was also a release of emotion in my brain, and it made me quite emotional actually. And then he was just gonna leave it at that, but she was like, no, wait, come back. And then I don't know, it was important for her to have her little spiel after that, for sure.
Of course. And you can feel as the thing is, the terrible thing about domestic abuse, or one of the terrible things, is that this is not a stranger abusing you. This is somebody you legitimately love, and it is a very complicated emotional state that I've worked with survivors of abuse, and to know that your abuser is somebody you loved and trusted and still love in a way, and conceived a child with. So, and you can tell that in her performance, because I mean, these people in the last 30-40 minutes of this movie, which this movie is paced interestingly. It feels long, but not long at all at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it puts you in an almost trance-like state. This is kind of a great movie for me to watch on a Sunday afternoon with the sun peeping slightly through the curtains. Closed curtains.
Yes, that atmosphere. Exactly.
It's Sunday afternoon. I'm tired because I stayed up too late last night. I'm in my bed. The sunlight's peeking through the closed curtains ever so slightly into my bedroom.
Cheeto dust on the fingers.
No.
Shoved up
Scott's
ass.
talking about this dreamy sort of weird Sunday atmosphere that's kind of off. And I know exactly what he's saying. I'm glad he does, because that's the exact atmosphere you want when you watch Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
And stuff similar to that. And I think Lynch was inspired by this movie when he came up with the Dougie storyline for Twin Peaks season 3. and I think he was inspired by that. Also, Harry Dean Stanton's his friend and all that.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
I just wanted to relate that real quick.
Even driving, and this is a scientific fact, there's neurological responses to it. You get into that fugue state when driving almost.
Yeah,
You ever
Dissociation
just
like a
dissociate
motherfucker.
and then you hit a bump and it
yes,
wakes you
I did
up?
that last week, and I felt like a piece of shit
Yeah. Well, it's
because
just
because I went to Branson and drove back the same day. And then I was worried about you last night because you were tired, but I guess
no,
you're
yeah,
okay.
sure. I meant to text you last night, but I ended up not.
Yeah, Scott.
I'm here. I'm casting.
Scott is tired today because he won at Mario Party last night.
A
for him.
party.
Yeah.
No, I just got home at like 2.
Bro, yeah, there's a thing called white line fever for a reason, which is you dissociate and all you see is just the white line separating the highway. There's a really good song called White Line Fever by Billy Strings.
White line fever is
Or
that
by
one?
I can't remember who it's by. But I do dissociation on long drives, even just like 45-minute drives.
Yeah.
I'm notorious.
If it's a
dissociation.
boring empty drive without a lot of I imagine, can you imagine being like a trucker in the Southwest? Like you're real
no.
desert bus. Ugh.
The most miserable I've ever been is driving through Kansas, which is just one straight line for 5 hours.
It's the worst.
It's horrible.
Or Superman really is a Jesus figure for coming from that place and not turning evil.
Oh man.
Oh, I do want to tie in Star Wars real quick. He
Oh
does,
no,
damn
shut the
it.
fuck
he
up.
does say a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
That
Yeah,
does
'cause
kind of
he's-
set you back to reality, seeing the kid play with like a little handheld video game and like talk about Star Wars and stuff. You're like, oh yeah, this is like,
this is right after Return of the Jedi came out, bro.
yeah.
I had to tie it in somehow.
That kid was prime age for Return of the Jedi too. Look at him.
Yeah.
I bet he had a good time. Man.
Jealous of this kid with the terrible parental figures.
No, his parental figures are cool.
No, his real ones.
His real
I mean, hers not real ones.
I would love to live in a fucking house like that. That house was cool. I like it.
What, in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But I mean, I know. I'm just saying I like the house. I like the wood paneling and the carpeting and stuff. I like it. Just feels homey.
they're two very different stages of the West. There's a lot of pain crossing west before you get to Los Angeles. There's a lot of pain in Los Angeles too. You get those people who achieved the American dream, even the French woman who did, who successfully crossed the seas and made a life in America like so many people didn't.
Yeah.
And so many people still don't.
And then, you compare that to his real mom and dad. Yeah, I guess that's the good comparison there. Nice, idealized suburban lifestyle.
The people who didn't get dysentery on the Oregon Trail and die.
So yeah, why do you think he left at the end? Is it? I guess we already.
I already touched upon it. I think he thinks there's nothing else I can do here other than screw up this kid's life because I am talking to my wife. I've done what I can. It's almost like a confessional at the end there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't see the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's kind of a pussy.
None of the he is. He doesn't really
because like and you get that when he's because at first when he takes the kid with him to Houston, it's like, okay, he might not all be there coherently, Yeah. But then when they get to the truck stop, he makes the kid call them instead of himself because he's a fucking coward in that way.
Yeah, he is.
That's when you get that first sense of like, oh man, that's not good.
I think he does come back from that fugue state as like a blank slate. In the pit, he starts to really pick up personality traits again. And the end all was him getting upset, drinking. And I think he realized then that like he's got to stay out of this fucking kid's life.
Yeah.
Like,
you get a sense of that rage when he's like, don't you have Johns that you talk to outside of work or whatever he was saying?
Yeah, you can tell
all of these places, you can go to, and I've never been to one, but you can go to strip clubs and you can find people who will quote unquote escort you. You know, I mean,
You
you
fuck
give
him
you,
back.
yeah, I
Is
mean,
that
who
whole
will
cash?
give you meals off the menu.
Yeah, not
Widow.
not that it's his business anyway, but yeah.
But no, and like I understand, like if you figured out your ex-wife was like turning tricks and stuff, yeah, that would bother you. But you can just feel
turning
the
tricks.
yeah, whatever
How
you
old
call
are
it.
you?
I don't know.
It's an
But
illusion, Michael. Trick is something a whore does for money.
but the you know, her and her John's wearing jimmies. And you can tell though, that rage slips back in. And you don't really see it before that in the movie, and it is scary.
Yeah,
Once you get the context later.
that's when it comes even. Yeah, then the last 40 of the minutes of this movie becomes so tragic in that way emotionally.
But it's still, it takes so much time for just them to talk, and it feels so protracted, but somehow my sense of time was warped where like that 40 minutes could have been 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
Because it's
for
so
sure.
despite the dialogue being so sparse, it's so emotionally dense. There's so much happening emotionally that's off the page. And also
Yeah.
these actors get to act their butts off. And I love it using just their faces.
Yeah. See, yeah, that's why this movie stuck with me.
I know. No, I can imagine if you're Nastassja Kinski or whatever her name is. I don't know. The who's not an actor I've ever heard of, and to my knowledge has not been in any other major films in America.
Yeah, but she has that alluring quality to her. It's almost like fascinating, like dreamlike, and that's why at the end you can see her in that role, but also see the humanity in her.
Very Ava Brown like.
Very Ava Braun. Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah, this guy, he's made the director, he's made a lot of good shit. I actually want us to cover another one of his films in like the next month or two. It's called Wings of Desire. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's one of those existential films that college students love, but also it's actually really good.
Okay, I was about to say, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
He
also directed Soul Man. Oh, sorry, no, that's The Soul of a Man. That's a different.
It's where Wings of Desire is like, I would love to discuss it with you guys. Maybe we can get John Woolmacher on it. He'll go for 3 hours on the existential German bullshit. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, I would like to discuss that. I've been meaning to watch his movie. What's it called? It's like 5 hours long, and apparently
No fucking way.
It's like we don't have to do it for the cast. I'll just watch it myself because I'm a true patrician and I don't care. It's
what movie is it?
Let me see real quick. It's I think it's from the 90s.
Wings of Desire is about invisible immortal angels who populate Berlin and presumably take a lot of GHB.
Yeah.
But
the movie I'm talking about is a sci-fi movie called Until the End of the World, and it was originally cut down to 2.5 hours for he had to promise like a theatrical cut, obviously, and it wasn't until like years later that he got to like premiere his full version, which is like 4 hours and 50 minutes or something. It's like a fucking epic, apparently.
I bet. It's also kind of it's one of those things. It's almost the hubris of even trying to get that produced, but you're also like, I'm just going to shoot a bunch of extra footage,
especially back then. Yeah, apparently the assembly cut for it was 20 hours long.
Jesus Christ.
Yo, what the?
But he was, I guess, ahead of his time.
8 hours of sleep in this assembly.
Well, it's like he was just ahead of his time because now he could have released it as like a 12 episode TV show.
A good old Tubi original series.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's a shame because he definitely could have released it now and it wouldn't have been an issue. People watch fucking Stranger Things has 2-hour episodes, it's not a big deal anymore.
Right. It is. Yeah, people need to.
When he first had to release it, that 3-hour or the 5-hour version, he released it as like a trilogy of mini films or whatever, I guess. And then Criterion came along and was like, no, we can restore this to its original capacity.
Well,
That's
also the problem, unless you have a movie like Avatar that's really long, but you know it's going to make a crap ton of money, and you're charging more for 3D tickets. Back then, you know, they don't really like really long movies, because if you have a 5-hour movie, you could fit 3 90-minute movies and sell 3 times as many tickets in that amount of time. So
you know,
theaters don't like that.
it depends. Well, obviously, Gone with the Wind was a huge success, but that's
Yeah, but that was also packed seats all the
it's
time.
not
Is this
also
German
like
existentialism gonna
esoteric sci-fi.
Well, and that's
movie.
what I find so interesting about. I didn't know when I mean, it makes sense given the name. I didn't know when I saw this movie that was in European production. I almost figured it out almost intuitively, though. Despite being so Americana, and obviously somebody who does understand American culture and its legacy in some sense, who understands the Western, I'll definitely say that. And how to do neo-Western. And not just because of Janus films, although I did see that. I was like, oh, this is a Janus thing. But even just hearing the German doctor at first, I'm like, they're really going a European angle with that. They immediately set you in that, and then they double it down with it with the French wife.
Yeah.
And so there is that you get the sense, whether you're conscious of it or not, of you reviewing America through a foreign lens, which if you are not foreign, that adds to a sense of estrangement, because you're seeing a filtered, I don't know, it's almost like you're seeing like Nega Texas. You're seeing the dark underworld mirrored universe Texas.
I see what you're saying.
Nega Texas, where the white people are
okay.
slaves.
All right, that was Paris, Texas, everybody. Thanks for
Sorry.
tuning in. This has been The Harbor. Next week, we're going to watch a film called American Movie. My personal favorite documentary of all time. So look forward to that.
It's sponsored by Surge, a product of the Coca-Cola company.
Yo, that'd be sick as fuck.
No, we'll get into that. Don't spoil anything for old Casher. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Go check out Logan's Run. That's our banger fucking episode. Go share that. Yeah. Thanks.